Hey everybody, welcome in. We are doing MaxImmunity Webinar tonight, and I'm so excited. To be honest with you guys though, this is the second time that I've done this webinar today, and that is just crazy. Give me just a second. I'm going to figure out the sound issues here. We'll mute that so you guys can't hear me twice. All right, so yeah, we did this earlier today. I was fully planning on recording this ahead of time and then being kind of behind the scenes to answer your questions and comments as they came in, but we got about 95% of the way and the video stream cut out and we weren't able to do it. So yeah, here we are. We're going to do it live and in person. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on your questions as they come in. April's going to be behind the scenes looking at those questions too. We're going to offer you guys some discounts on supplements, on products. We're going to go through everything. But the point of tonight is not selling anything. It's not teaching you how to cure anything that we don't know a cure for. The point of tonight is really to encourage you guys in just how amazing your immune system is. You know, when you think about how well we're designed, we are so fearfully and wonderfully made. God took us out of 2 cells, formed a single cell, duplicated and replicated itself 35 trillion times into this living, loving, thinking clay that's sitting, you know, in front of you right now. And it did it all with just a little bit of intelligence that God placed inside of your brain and, you know, put, you know, that intelligence in your nervous system, and it runs everything. And it continues to run everything, and it continues to keep your heart beating, your lungs breathing. It heals a cut on your leg, it heals a cut on your hand, and it does it all without us thinking about it. But when it comes to the immune system, it also participates in that. It's one of the key components of the immune system. And so what we're talking about over here, I'm going to be blowing this screen up for you guys so that you can see all of the content, that we can get all the notes. If you want the notes, if you want the immune boost perspective, if you want, you know, some of these top things, make sure that you're texting our office or leaving a comment, the keyword, so that we know exactly what you want sent to you. We'll reach out to you if we need your email or we need your contact information at all. But please, 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 if you know somebody who's immune compromised, that isn't getting the most out of their immune system, that they've experienced some interference in expressing health, then make sure that you're sharing this video. Like this video. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, like and share, tag somebody in the comments, make sure that they have access to this. I'm going to be posting this and saving this later. And if you're watching this later, welcome in. We want you to dive into this material so that you can really, truly begin to experience health the way that God designed it. So without further ado, disclaimer, we are not treating COVID. We're not treating anything here. All we're talking about is how to get your immune system functioning at its normal, healthy levels. So let's start off here with the first slide, and that's going to be really a little bit about me. For those of you that don't know who I am, yes, I used to be, you know, this, which side is my face on? Over here. I used to be clean shaven and younger and getting more sleep, but then I had kids, and now I am sick and dying. It's hilarious, right? No, but you know, I got into chiropractic over 10 years ago now, and I thought when I was getting here that it was all about, you know, this awesome modality for treating, you know, neck pain, for treating back pain, for treating headaches. And come to find out, a couple weeks into chiropractic school, my mom gives me a call and she says, "Jacob, we're just so proud of you and your decision to, you know, just follow God in his steps." I'm like, "Thank you, Mom. I appreciate your prayers." And she said, "You know, did you know that a chiropractor saved your life when you were just a baby?" And I said, "Really? And tell me more about this." And because I had very little understanding what chiropractic was beyond that back pain, neck pain, headaches modality. And she said, "Yeah, when you were 2 days old, we brought you home from the hospital, clean bill of health. But at 2 weeks old, I was breastfeeding you and you quit breathing and you turned blue down to your elbows." And so, of course, it was like, "Oh, wow, like what happened there?" And she said, "Well, we didn't know. We resuscitated you, rushed you to the emergency room, and they monitored you all night and you quit breathing 14 times. But they did not give you a diagnosis. They couldn't figure out what was going on. So they sent you to a specialist." And we went to specialist after specialist, I believe over a dozen different specialists before they ended up at the University of Michigan Children's Hospital. And so, you know, this took about 6 months for all this to elapse. And through that time, you know, she was praying for me. She had friends and family members praying for me, and she mentioned it to her best friend, you know, and she recommended go to her chiropractor. And, you know, like anybody who's dealing with breathing problems, like what does a chiropractor have to do with breathing issues? And, finally, you get to the University of Michigan Children's Hospital, and they say, well, we think he has SIDS. So sudden infant death syndrome. Hopefully he'll grow out of it. So really no hope, no answer. I enter into this medical model with a symptom, right? Quit breathing. I get, I don't get a diagnosis. I get referred out to a specialist right away. So I skip a couple steps. No treatment options really available for me other than just emergency resuscitation, and then end up with, little to no hope. And, finally my mom says, okay, well, I guess I'll try this chiropractor. And so she brings me in, and he's basically just playing with me. And he notices, I'm cocking my head over to one side. That one eye is larger than the other. One pupil is dilated larger than the other. And he goes right to the top of my neck. The top bone of the neck, it's called atlas. It surrounds and protects the brainstem. And there's a dozen cranial nerves that exit off, and most of them exit out right underneath atlas. And he goes right to it, and it's shoved over to the side, just enough to be putting pressure, a damaging pressure, on my nerves that exit out and go to my lungs. It's called the vagus nerve, Latin for wanderer. And he does one adjustment, and I have never had a breathing problem since then. And so that kind of began to transform my paradigm on what chiropractic was, but also on what health was. Because until that point, my real thought on health, and in this culture that we live in, health is all about, the presence or absence of symptoms. But really, when you look at it, it's not. So what my mission is here is that my goal is to empower longer, healthier lives through the chiropractic care and integration of our 5 essentials. And we'll get into all 5 essentials here. I really want to teach you guys what's going on with this, but this really comes down to what the definition of health is. And we get this wrong. So, you just look at the United States right now. We have the most expensive healthcare system in the world. There's no country in the world that spends more money on healthcare than the United States does. Last year, I believe the number was around $10,000 per person. That's money coming out of your pocket. When you look at it, the country as a whole, the gross domestic product, we spent almost 1/5 of our gross domestic product on healthcare costs. And where did that get us? Well, we took the most drugs. As 5% of the world's population, we took 74% of the world's prescription drugs. We took 80% of the world's painkillers, and we took 90% of the world's psychotropic medications. So if money spent, if drugs taken, if access to the best facilities in the world, if having the best medical doctors and medical professionals equaled health, then we should be the healthiest country in the world. But when you look at the actual statistics, where do we fall? Well, when you just compare apples to apples, just the industrialized nations, we ranked dead last, 37th out of 37. Think about it. That's crazy. All that money spent, all those access to resources. Heck, even our law state that if you go into the emergency room, regardless of your ability to pay, you have to receive care. And so, it's really, it breaks down to a couple different issues with how we're really missing the boat with this. And this applies so strongly to our mindset right now on the immune system and how we're responding to this breakdown. So sorry about that. I'm going to keep the lights on. Get that out of the way so the sensor can see me. Yeah, it's really just breaks down awfully. We need to have a different mindset when it comes to health. And it starts with knowing what health is. Health is not the presence or absence of symptoms. Health is a state of 100% optimal function and healing, both physically, emotionally, and socially. We have to have all of those aspects, or else we're not healthy. But what do we base our health on? We base our health on how we feel. We don't go to the doctor until we feel bad. And then, when we go, the first thing he does is he looks at our symptoms. Based off of those symptoms, he gives us a diagnosis. Based off that diagnosis, we take a medication. If that medication doesn't cover up our symptoms well enough, then we go back to the doctor hoping for either a better diagnosis or a better medication that better covers up those symptoms. And if that doesn't work, then we go to a special doctor who runs a special test, gives us a special drug, all at a special price. He's called a specialist. And if that doesn't work, then we go to a surgeon, and the surgeon looks at these organs, cells, and tissues behind me to evaluate whether or not those tissues, you're better off without them. That's our healthcare system. It is failing abysmally. We have to focus on what health is. And so let's dive in here. Let's dive into the immune system, because the immune response, it is so incredible. Our bodies are designed to take any invader, a virus, a bacteria, a pathogen, a fungus, you name it, a rogue cell that's got warped DNA, and it has cells that are designed to identify it and to appropriately deal with that, whether that's to absorb it and digest it and redistribute its components into healthier tissues, or to break it down and flush it out, or just isolate it, form a cyst around it, form this little, almost like tumor cell, completely enclosed and safe from the rest of the body. Our immune system does that because it's an intelligent response. Whether you're talking about the IgG response, the IgE response, when you're talking about macrophages, T helper cells, T killer cells, all these cells God designed, put in place to deal with viruses, to deal with bacteria, to deal with these pathogens of so many kinds. And when it does its job, when it's functioning at a high level, when it functions at its normal level, we have nothing to fear from the bacterial realm, from the viral realm. In fact, when you look at our bodies and you look at our cellular makeup, from a cellular perspective, we've got 35, 36 trillion cells in here. We have hundreds of trillions of viruses, hundreds upon trillions of bacteria, just sitting on your skin, just residing in your gut, just residing in your lungs. And our understanding of this right now is starting to catch up with what's actually true. We used to think that viruses and bacteria, they were the cause of all disease. Now we know that it's more than that. It's the health of the host. And so the immune system responds to the outside invaders, but also responds to what's going on inside, and sometimes develops immune responses to what's happening on the inside, regardless of what's going on the outside. So let's look at this. So mindset, fevers, coughs, sniffles, is that sick or healing? And I have to deal with this right now. I have 3 small children. We just added a third about 7 weeks ago, and he's the one that's keeping me from sleeping. But really, they're all contributing in their own way. But when they have a fever, when they have a cough, when they have a sniffle, I have a choice that I have to make. I either have to treat them like they're broken, that they are sick and they are suffering, and we want to, palliate that, this palliative approach, or I can treat that like a healing response. So let's break this down item by item. So fevers, first off, is a fever a good thing or a bad thing? Well, let's see. If you have a fever, what happens on the inside? And if you have a fever, it actually creates an inhospitable environment for a virus or for a bacteria to grow and develop. So it stops the growth of the virus or bacteria. When you suppress a fever, that virus or that bacteria can grow and express itself and may even overwhelm your immune system. Okay, so fevers, if we didn't have them when there's a virus or bacterial infection, that actually means that you would be less healthy. Okay, so how about a cough? Well, what's a cough for? Well, a cough is to expel anything that's not supposed to be in there. So let's say it's a viral infection that's starting to pick up, or just your body detects that there is a virus that maybe shouldn't be there and it hasn't even infected anything yet. You start coughing, that's probably a good thing because it's trying to expel that virus. Okay, what happens if you suppress that cough? Well, now the virus just kind of hangs out there. And what does the virus do when it hangs out? Well, it actually starts to be absorbed into the cells. The viral material inside its DNA actually starts to insert itself into your genetic code, and starts to duplicate and replicate itself and propagate across your entire system. Okay, so it sounds like if I suppress a cough, that's actually a bad thing. So sniffles, if I have increased mucus production, whether that's in my nose or in my throat or both, what is that for? Well, that's actually to create a barrier of keeping the virus or bacteria or pathogen away from my actual human cells and allow my body a pathway to dispel it. So if I dry up all that mucus, that means that those virus and bacteria, now they're in contact with my epithelial cells and getting absorbed into that again. So are those things actually sickness or are those healing? And so basically what I'm getting at is, number one, symptom suppression is sick in itself. Just the mindset behind that is completely wrong. When you suppress those symptoms, study after study shows that your illness lasts longer. It gets worse and sticks around longer. But it's an actual healing approach. And when we take this mindset, when we understand that when these things are happening, your immune system is doing what it's supposed to do, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that God did not create junk, and that this process is a good process, then you end up being healthier because of it. You don't chase those symptoms. You actually start to address cause. What's the cause? And then we support the immune system and what it needs to do. And that's what this presentation is all about, is supporting the immune system so that you can stay healthy and well. So the equation that we're led to believe is that when there's a germ, there has to be a response. This is Koch's postulates right here. When there's a germ, it creates a response. End of story. And from that, we actually come out on this focus. Where culture focuses, it focuses on the germs, it focuses on the antibiotics that treat the germs, focuses on the vaccines that create artificial immunity to the germs. We create these bubbles of isolation separating ourselves, where we're supposed to be these actual these social beings. We're socially isolating ourselves. We sanitize our environment, even though that's shown in studies to actually increase our risk of long-term diseases. And we kind of miss the point, because the actual equation isn't germ leads to response, it's germ plus host leads to response. So think about this. You've got a grassy field. That grassy field is home to some things, but it's mostly just green grass, maybe a few trees. There's no trash in that field. Then we've got a trash dump on the other hand. So trash dump, grassy field. Which one is going to attract rats? Which one is going to attract buzzards? Trash dump, grassy field. Trash dump 100% of the time. So trash dump has all these buzzards, has these rats, has maggots, has flies. So let's go and we spray this with pesticides. We get some pest control out there. We go in, we give a hunting license to a bunch of rednecks and they start shooting the buzzards. What happens to the trash? Is that environment any healthier? Absolutely not. But if we take that green grassy field, has no buzzards, has no nothing, we dump trash in it, is it going to attract that trash? Or is it going to attract those rodents? Is it going to attract those buzzards and flies and maggots? Absolutely. And this is the same thing that happens with viruses and bacteria. When you have an unhealthy host, then the germ propagates and issues the germ response. But when you have a healthy host, when the immune system is functioning at its appropriate level, then it actually creates a healthy response. Symptoms typically don't follow, although that's less predictable, because remember that fever, the cough, the sniffles, all those things, those are actually a healthy response to help express and expel those germs and viruses and bacteria. So that's the ignored piece of the equation. That's the piece that we're going to be focusing on tonight. How do we make that healthier? So we have to start by asking better questions. What's the cause? Number one, what causes the disease? What causes the diagnosis? The diagnosis is just a Latin term for whatever symptom you're experiencing. But if we actually go in and we find the cause of these symptoms, then we can actually start to create a healthier environment for it. And so let's start there. There has never been a more important time to get healthy than right now. Why? Because there's so much stress, there's so much fear, there's so much misinformation out there that we really have to get back to the basics on this. We have to get back to getting healthier, creating a healthier environment so that germs and viruses and bacteria cannot propagate themselves. So what are the top immune stressors? It starts, number one, with sugar. You look at the average American right now. There are 365 days in a year. If you eat the standard American diet, the average American right now consumes roughly 260 pounds of sugar a day. So where are my math majors? How many pounds of sugar does that equal in a day if you're eating the standard American diet? That's about 2/3. So 2/3 pounds of sugar on a daily basis. And we know from the research that if you consume 100 grams of sugar in a day, that actually suppresses the immune system for 4 hours. Or 100 grams of sugar, period, is going to suppress your immune system for up to 4 hours. So yeah, if you eat sugar, it's actually going to compromise your immune system. Well, where are we getting most of that from? Well, if you look at this, and if you were to break this down in a pie chart, about 1/3 of that would be coming from sugary drinks. So sugary drinks, alcoholic drinks, these are the ones that have the added sugars in them. It really is a major problem. And you look at a can of soda, you look at even just something like orange juice and how much sugar is in there, you should be getting no more than 2 grams of sugar in an hour, just depending on your size and how much your metabolism can handle. But really that should break down to about 30 grams of sugar a day for a male and 24 for a female if you fall within the averages. And really where we're at right now, one soda is over 20 grams of sugar all by itself. And so if you're drinking a soda at all, well, there goes your sugar for the day, and you haven't even started to add in the healthy foods that contain natural sugars. Then we look at processed foods. Almost another third of those sugars are coming from processed foods. And then you look at things like unhealthy fats, denatured fats that are present in our food supply. Most of this is coming from our processed foods that are artificially added to these foods. Gut problems. This creates another issue that stresses out the immune system. Why? Because over 70% of your immune system resides in the gut, in the microbiome, in those flora, in those good bacteria that reside there. Eating or drinking too much. If you eat too much, that's going to decrease your metabolism. It's going to make you obese, and it's going to make it more likely for you to get sick. Drink too much. Now we're dealing with an alcohol problem and a sugar problem. We're stressing the immune system. We're keeping it from being able to function at a high level. And then the last one is disafferentation in the brain-body connection. What does that mean? That's a fancy way of saying that your brain is not talking to your body. If your brain is not talking to your body, can your brain tell your body what to do? No. And yes, that's simplification. It's usually just not talking as well as it should. And when it's not talking as well as it should, it's like playing a bad game of telephone, except now this bad game of telephone is not just trying to communicate a message, it's trying to communicate health and express itself to your entire body. And so we need to start focusing on getting that brain-body connection back running up and at 100%. And so we go there. We start there, start with those 5 things, and we work our way backwards. So this involves addressing all 5 essentials. We're going to improve the health of the host by addressing all 5 essentials. So that starts with core chiropractic over here, number 1. Because why? Because the nervous system is the system that controls all function in the body. Remember, the definition of health is 100% optimal function and healing. If your nervous system isn't healing and functioning well, what's going to happen to your immune system when viruses and bacteria and pathogens are introduced? Well, it may handle it well at first, but then that game of telephone, remember, it breaks down and it doesn't communicate as well, and you get sicker and sicker and sicker, and gradually over time it goes worse. Now, it can happen fast too, right? You can have such a severe disconnect that it makes it worse right away, but that's absolutely, it's going to interfere in the expression of the immune system. Number 2, nutrition. So remember, this intelligence that formed us, it's still correct, it's still reforming us. We replace ourselves at a cellular level at least once every 15 years. Your stomach lining every 3 days, your intestinal lining 3 to 5 days, your heart and your lungs every 5 to 10 years, your nerves and your bone cells every 15 to 20 years. And so if you look at the average life expectancy, let's say you just hit 60, you're replacing yourself 4 times there. Well, what does that require? It requires that you get essential micronutrients and macronutrients into your body. What does that word essential mean? It means that you cannot get it without actually getting it from outside the body. You actually have to go out and seek that out. So we're going to dive into nutrition here and talk about what are those essential things that you need to keep your immune system running at a high level. Next is going to be mindset. Stress absolutely suppresses your immune system. It activates the sympathetic or the stress side of the nervous system. It deactivates the parasympathetic or the rest and digest or the healing side of the nervous system. It suppresses the immune system and it keeps you from being able to heal. It keeps you from being able to sleep. It makes you wired and tired, and it inhibits all these natural processes that we want. And so we have to have that right, proper, healthy mindset in order to be healing and functioning well. Oxygen and exercise. There's a genetic requirement for exercise. Every cell in your body needs oxygen. Your immune system needs the blood flow from exercise to flush out pathogens and to bring in that oxygen and keep your immune system functioning at a high level. Toxicity. If you poison yourself, your immune system drops. It's as simple as that. Problem is, most of us don't realize what is surrounding and attacking us. And so we're going to go through all of these, and we're going to break them down one by one and make sure that you have everything that you need to keep your immune system healing and functioning at a high level. So let's start with mindset. And this may be actually the most important one, because when you have a good, healthy mindset about what your body's doing, then you don't have to stress about this. And so let's start here. Number 1, daily gratitude. You have to practice daily gratitude. Why is the first one in this list not identifying your stressors? Because we can sit here and we can identify our stressors all day, but if all we focus on is what we stress about, what we focus on grows. And if we focus on the stress, even if we're trying to identify that healing approach, we're going to create growth in that area. And that growth is in the stress itself. And so instead of focusing on what stresses you, start focusing on what creates peace. So number one, that's going to be daily gratitude. We have to have an attitude of thankfulness. An attitude of thankfulness. And so what I do with my kids every single night is we have a prayer that we sing that's all about thankfulness and gratitude and giving thanks to God for the blessings that he's given us through the day, knowing that not everything in our lives is in our control. And so thanking the Father of heavenly lights who gives us every good and perfect gift. It comes from above. We need that if we're going to be healthy. We need that attitude in order to create that peace. Number one, daily gratitude. Number two, facts over fear. We have to understand what's actually happening. Now, I'm not saying that means you need to be turning on the news. In fact, I think you should turn off the news because they are not a source of information anymore. They are a source of sensationalization. The news anymore is all they're trying to do is sell commercials. They're trying to make a profit. They're not actually trying to inform you as to what's happening. There's more stuff out there. So let's just put things in context for a second. With COVID-19 right now, the stats, at least as far as I was updated last, are showing that in the worst country in the world with the highest mortality rate, Italy, in the demographic that's most susceptible, 90-plus-year-olds, that the death rate is currently 12%. So you can think about that one way. 12% is pretty catastrophic. Every death is a catastrophe. Every life lost to this thing is horrific. And it means that someone is grieving. And I absolutely feel for you. And I pray for you. And I pray for your family. And I hope that's not you. However, what that means is that for every one person that gets it, or for every 10 people that get it, 9 people survive. In the sickest demographic, in the worst performing country in the world right now. They have hope that even if they're 90 years old or more, they're not just going to survive. They're going to bounce out of this thing and they're going to conquer it. And they're going to have a healthier immune system because of it. Looking at the stats worldwide right now, it's estimated that it's about 1.5%, but it's also being said that that 1.5% death rate overall for all the countries in the world is probably an exaggeration to try to get more money into these hospitals so that, and really, if you don't realize this right now, if they add COVID-19 to a death certificate or to a treatment record, they get about $13,000. If they put them on a ventilator, it's another $13,000 for the treatment of these conditions. So yes, that's a good thing. We need hospitals to get the funding they need to be able to treat these things appropriately, but that also incentivizes people to over-report it. And I've heard multiple cases of people dying of heart disease or cancer or diabetes, but because they had anything upper respiratory going on, even though they didn't get tested, they're being reported as COVID-19 right now. And so it's not necessarily what it's at, and it could be even as low as about 0.5%. So whether it's 0.5% or it's 1.5%, that's still most people are recovering. And by most people, I don't mean 50%, I mean 98.5 to 99.5% of people are getting better from this. And then we look at the people that actually die. Most of them can be broken down into a category of having either one major life-threatening illness that was probably going to take them this year anyways, 2 major life-threatening illnesses that were going to probably take their life this year anyways, or 3 major life-threatening illnesses. And so this is not something we need to be afraid of. It's something that we need to prepare for. That's why we need to look for these facts. I'm not saying that this is not real. I'm not saying that we need to minimize it at all, but we need to take this into proper context. Jesus said, even the flowers are clothed more beautifully than Solomon in all of his splendor. If God's taking care of the sparrow, if God's taking care of the lilies, isn't he going to take care of you? And absolutely, he set us up for that. And then the last thing with mindset, and I'm just going to really hammer this home, it's sleep. This is something I'm absolutely not getting right now. With Zeke being the way that he is and the way that he's sleeping right now, I'm just not getting rest. It's just not happening. I tried to go to bed around 10 o'clock last night, and because of things and having kids and life and owning a business, I wasn't ready to go to bed until after 11:30. And then around 11:30, my son wakes up, and so I take the early shift. I know I have an early morning today. I take the late shift so that I can at least get some sleep, a solid sleep before that, so I go to bed at 2:30. So I ended up with about 3.5 to 4 hours of sleep. Not enough. You need to be getting between 7 to 9 hours of sleep. If you're dealing with a chronic disease already, if you've got a diagnosis, you need to be getting 9 hours of sleep, period. If you're not getting 9 hours of sleep, you're really setting yourself up for failure here. Get 7 to 9, 7 if you're on the healthy side, 9 if you've got a diagnosis, if you've got a chronic condition, if you know that you have an autoimmune condition, a rheumatoid type arthritis, anything. Don't do it to yourself. Focus on getting enough sleep. That means making sure that you have a good bed. Replace it at least once every 10 years. Making sure that it's dark enough in your room. Making sure that there's not a TV in your room, that you're not getting access to that blue light within 2 hours of bedtime, minimum 1 hour before bedtime, ideally 5 hours before bedtime. Me doing this webinar right now is probably throwing off my whole sleep cycle, but my sleep cycle is shot right now. I have no hope right now with just the way that my kids are going. But we have to focus on getting enough sleep, or else it's just not going to let us be healthy right now. We have to get that sleep. We have to create that sanctuary for sleep. So those are the 3 keys to getting healthy. If you want more on that, text mindset to 402-413-8825, and we can go deeper into that mindset right now. But that mindset is such a huge component here. Such a huge component. But then the importance of sunshine here too. People don't get this. Your brain waves change when you get access to sunshine, even in context of sleep. If you get to watch the sunrise and watch the sunset, your body does things that it doesn't do unless it gets to see those things. You get better levels of melatonin. You get better D3 absorption. Your hormones start to change, and you start to become more awake at the appropriate times of the day. You start to become less awake at the times when you're supposed to be falling asleep. And it's absolutely essential. This is more than just vitamin D3, which is absolutely critical in the function of your immune system. But if you're not actually seeing the sunshine on a day-to-day basis, you're robbing yourself of one of the most important components of health. Get outside, get some sun on your skin, and do it so that you're not just absorbing that vitamin D3, but that you're actually seeing the sunrise, you're seeing the sunset. That's one of the beautiful things about my hours right now is on the way into the office, I'm seeing the sunrise every single morning. Now on the way out of the office, usually just because of how late I'm here, I'm getting to see the sunset. And I get to do that oftentimes with my kids. And it's great because we all prepare for that together. You know, God created nature, God created this earth for us to support life for eternity. We were eternal beings when we were created in the garden, but then we messed up. We threw ourselves away from that design, and now we're to the point where most of us don't even see the sun, and that's not good. That's robbing us of our health. Next is nutrition. So we talked about those building blocks that we need. We absolutely need certain micronutrients and macronutrients. And if you want more on this, I did a workshop, a live webinar that's posted on the YouTube page, that you can have access to so that you can actually get know those macronutrients, micronutrients. We're going to dive into some of those tonight. This is not a nutrition talk, but we're going to focus on some of those now. I want to walk you through how to get healthier right now so that your immune system is at the level that it needs to be. So number one, we have to cut the sugar. You look at this thing. When you consume the level of sugar consumption that we are doing right now, it creates these things called advanced glycation end products, or we call them AGEs for short. Well, what does that do? Well, that actually ages us. It makes us older. It creates wrinkles. It breaks down cells, makes our cells more brittle, and we can actually see it at a genetic level that our genes are actually starting to break down, look older, that the telomeres are shortening, all these signs that we're getting older when we consume sugar the way that we're consuming it. And you go to the grocery stores right now, what's sold out? Is it the spinach? Is it the broccoli? No, it's the junk food in the snack aisle. It's all sold out because right now we're stuck on our couch, we're isolating, we're not getting exercise, and we're eating the sugar. So we got to cut the sugar. And then we have to recognize the importance of the gut immune connection here. If we don't recognize that over 70% of your immune system resides in your gut, then we're not going to be able to address that from a healthy perspective. If our immune system is going to be healthy, we have to start by addressing that gut immune connection and how that resides. In fact, when you look at it, if we're 36 trillion human cells, we're 360 trillion bacteria cells. We need to be getting good bacteria in there in order to be healthy. And if we're 36 trillion human cells and we're 4 times that in virus, over 130 trillion viral cells, are we actually the host or are they? What world are we living in that we think that the human DNA is what makes up this environment? No, we have to recognize that these things make up how healthy we are, and we have to make sure that we're giving them the food that they need so they can keep us healthy, and not the other way around. We shouldn't be killing them. We shouldn't be sterilizing them. They need to be healthy as much or more so than we do. So we have to go there. And so now more than ever is a time to start implementing the advanced plan. If you've never done it because it's been an inconvenient time, well, tough luck. Time to throw down the gauntlet and say, now's my time for the advanced plan. So if you're new to this, if you've never done the nutrition talk, if you haven't read the Align Your Health book, absolutely check those things out. Go back to the old webinars, look at these things. But the advanced plan is very, very similar to some combination of the paleo diet and the ketogenic diet. It is designed, and this is older than either of those two, and has been updated so that this is still cutting edge science, but it's designed for short-term management of weight, right? We get ourselves to a healthy weight, and then we drop into the core plan, right? If we can balance this out, then we can get there. If you've got an active disease process, we need to be on the advanced plan. And then if we need detoxification, if we know we've been exposed to some pretty nasty stuff, we need to be on the advanced plan. And so how does that start? What are the things that we need to do with this? Number one, we need to be curbing our carbohydrates. Remember, we're consuming way too much sugar. If we're supposed to be getting about 30 grams a day, and 100 grams a day is doing suppressing our immune system for 4 hours, if that's all we're getting, then that's really not setting ourselves up for success. We have to cut this way back. And so on the advanced plan, what the deal is that we actually eliminate grains and sugars completely. We just cut them all out, because what they do is they increase inflammation so much that our immune system cannot reside well. It actually kills the good bacteria in our digestive system. And then we have to identify those foods that have those sugars in them. Those sweetened beverages, the sweetened snacks, those processed foods. We have to cut those out so that we can get healthy again. And so we're going to go and we're going to do those things. So curb the carbs. We're going to number one, curb the carbs by eliminating those grains and sugars. Replace the processed snacks with whole foods, real foods. And then we're going to replace sweeteners with things like stevia. Now you can go with honey, you can go with maple syrup, but those things have a really high glycemic index and still create some level of inflammation, still suppress the immune system to some level. Even though they have a role in this, we definitely want to step back from those in the short term, even though in the long term they end up being healthier replacements and can actually be beneficial to our health. Number two is we're going to be perfecting our proteins. So our protein source is really, really bad. So and the reason I say that is because of two things. Number one is the principle of toxic bioaccumulation. So if you look at the food chain, where are most of the toxins? Is it at the bottom of the food chain, which basically just eats plants, or is it at the top of the food chain that's a carnivore and eats all the animals that eats plants? And it's always at the top of the food chain. If you're looking at just fish, it's the swordfish and it's the shark that has the higher mercury content. The tuna has a higher mercury content, not the bottom feeders, not the salmon, not the things that eat insects and plankton. It's the things at the top of the food chain that have the mercury and the heavy metals in them. And so we want to cut those things out. We want to start focusing on that quality over the quantity, right? Because we can buy 2 pounds of ground beef, the $2 chuck at 2 pounds for $2. Yeah, feed a family of 8 on that. Great, wonderful. But what are we giving them? Well, we're giving them a dose of those herbicides and pesticides. And then on top of that, you have to look at something like ground beef. It has a balance of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids in it. And those are essential fatty acids, but they have a specific relationship in the human body, and that ratio should be 2 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. And when it's in that ratio, your body heals and functions at a really great level. But when you're deficient in either of those, or if you're not getting them in the right ratio, it starts to create inflammation. And standard beef, conventional beef, comes in a ratio of omega-6s at 17 parts to 1 part omega-3s. And this creates a high level of inflammation, completely disregarding the herbicides and pesticides that are on some of these genetically modified corns and grains that we're feeding these cows. Grass-fed beef, on the other side of things, the grass-fed cows that produce dairy, that we actually see those essential fatty acids in the ideal ratio of 2 to 1 or 4 to 1 or even 1 to 1. And it's non-inflammatory and has a higher level of nutrient density. And so we need that grass-fed beef and dairy products. We need the free-range chicken and their eggs, and then we need wild-caught fish if we're going to stay healthy. And then if you cannot afford the quality animal products, eat less of them. Go more towards vegetarian, or if not vegetarian, closer to vegetarian. You don't have to go vegan. It's not like there's a bunch of studies out there that show that vegans and vegetarians live longer. In fact, because they're eating more greens and they're still eating processed vegan and vegetarian products, they're living, about the same life expectancy as people that eat the standard American diet. They're just eating the standard American diet without the beef products. But it is one of the first things that we want to change are the animal products. If you're going to go organic, if you're going to go grass-fed or free-range or wild-caught, do that with your animal products first before you go to those vegetables and fruits and produce. The third thing is we need to fix our fats. If it's naturally fatty, that's usually going to indicate that it's a good fat. Those are going to be things like avocados, nuts, seeds, eggs, olives, grass-fed butters, all of those things, those natural fats are going to be the ones that are good for you. The bad fats are going to be the ones that require a high level of heat or processing to get there. And so if you think about the processing for something like avocado oil, basically you just have to squash an avocado to get avocado oil out of it. You just have to squash an olive to get olive oil out of it. You just skim the cream off of the top of the milk in order to get butter and to make butter out of it. But for something like canola oil, where's the canola plant? Well, there's no such thing. It actually stands for Canadian oil low acid. And Canadian oil low acid comes from a little seed called the rapeseed, R-A-P-E. And it requires such a high level of heat and processing to extract that. By the time it gets into the bottle, it's completely denatured and not good for you anymore. It creates inflammation in your body and can actually start to create a more brittle cell membrane when we're going in and we're replacing those cells in the cell walls. So we need that. And then we have to recognize that fats are not bad for you. Fats do not make you fat. Just because they're more calorie dense, it doesn't make you fatter. Fats are absolutely essential. You look at every cell in your body, it's surrounded by a phospholipid bilayer, meaning that it's got 2 layers of fat around every cell in your body. And then your nervous system is over 70% fat and needs to be in order for you to be healthy. Even saturated fats are required for healthy brain function. We see that in brains that don't have these saturated fats, that are low in cholesterol, that they actually are more likely to be dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's, whether it's early stage or late stage. And so we need to have healthy fats in our diets. Avoid these processed and synthetic fats. Margarine is a great example. Soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil is probably the worst because it's not a food product, but gets put on your movie theater popcorn. So I know nobody's going to the movie theaters right now, but it's absolutely one of those things that we need to be addressing. Next, let's talk about some of the foods that are most potent in fighting these things off. So if we're talking about density of antioxidants and micronutrients, we're talking about something like elderberries. We're talking about something like garlic. We're talking about something like citrus fruits. And we're talking about these things in their whole form. When they're in their whole form, the nutrients that are going to help support healthy function of the immune system are going to be more readily available and protected from the sugars that are naturally occurring. So if you look at something like orange juice, right? Loaded with vitamin C. I'm not going to argue that. Vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant, supports so many healthy processes in your body, and is so readily available in citrus fruits. But if you take that orange, you separate the juice from the pulp, and you don't have any of that fiber in there to protect you from the sugar, now your body's going to have the exact same response to the orange juice as you would have to a can of soda that has the exact same amount of sugar in there. In fact, I challenge you this: next time you're in the grocery store, pick up a can of soda and pick up a bottle of orange juice. Compare the serving size and the amount of sugar that's in each of them compared to the serving size. I bet you can't guess which one has more sugar in it. So let's actually talk about some of these key nutrients that you're going to need. Number one, vitamin D. It's the sunshine vitamin. You absolutely need vitamin D. Number two, vitamin C is one of the most powerful antioxidants out there, required from so many things. But most of us think of citrus, start thinking spinach. Vitamin A, root vegetables. It's one of these fat-soluble vitamins that you need. And then zinc, if you're talking about recent research coming out of the medical community supporting how do we take care of people that are affected by COVID, zinc is something that every single doctor is trying, and most of these doctors are reporting good results with. And so while none of these things actually treat COVID, a deficiency in these will lead to a reduced function in the health of your immune system. And so let's dive into each of these. So we've actually created an immune boost bundle to cover our bases with these. But this bundle here, it's incredible. We're doing some pretty incredible things. If you want these things right now, you just go to our store and type Immunity 5 at the checkout. You get 5% off all of them, and we'll make sure that you're able to get these delivered directly to your house. You don't even have to come into the office to get these. Well, let's break these down one by one. So number one, we have your vitamin D3. So this is your sunshine vitamin. And what are the key indicators that you need vitamin D3? Well, you may be deficient in vitamin D3, number one, if you have darker skin. So unfortunately for me, I've been blessed or not blessed with very light skin that burns easily. That means that if I go out in the sunshine between the hours of 10 and 2 for 30 minutes, I probably get enough vitamin D3 if I have my torso fully exposed for those 30 minutes. However, if you have darker skin, if you tan easily, if you have barrier, my brother-in-law, he grew up, or his family tree, his lineage goes back to the Mediterranean. They tan super easy. The melanin count in their skin actually blocks out the UV light from hitting and absorbing appropriately to create enough vitamin D3, so they need more. If you're overweight, you need more vitamin D3. If you're over the age of 55, you're more likely to have your metabolism slow down. That also slows down the process and synthesization of vitamin D3. And then if you cover up when you're in the sun, you're just not going to be getting enough vitamin D3 from the sun. So how much vitamin D3 should you have? Well, the FDA right now, their current recommendations are about 400 IUs on a daily basis. So that is enough to prevent rickets. But how much to prevent infection? How much to prevent cancers? We know, based off of research coming out of the University of Creighton, that if you take sufficient levels of vitamin D3, that you can reduce the risk of cancers by as much as 77%. How much vitamin D3 is that? Well, it's estimated that you need at least 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 a day. Your blood serum level should be between 60 and 100 to get to that level, or to have that sufficient level of protection. And so this is one that I take on a daily basis. I take at least 5,000 in the summer months, regardless of whether I get sunshine or not. And in the winter months, I'm absolutely getting 10,000 IUs on a daily basis. So that's my recommendations for vitamin D3. Vitamin C is a little bit different. Vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant. What's the role of an antioxidant? It's to bind to free radicals, but it's also absolutely necessary in wound healing and collagen production, in the nails growth and your hair growth, in your joint regrowth and healing. You may be deficient in this. Number one, if you're getting less than 5 servings of vegetables a day. While citrus fruits are the ones that we point to when we're talking about vitamin C, it's actually your green leafy vegetables that have a higher nutrient content with this. So getting 5 servings a day is going to help you get to that. If you're not getting there, vitamin C is one that you need. If you're suffering from low energy levels, vitamin C is one that you may be deficient in. If you are having those dry skin, those brittle hair and nails, then it could actually be creating that problem. And then if your wounds are taking more than a few days to heal, then it could be because you're deficient in vitamin C. That's one of those indicators that you're looking at. Next, if you're dealing with so probiotics, right? Talking about that microbiome, we need to be replenishing those probiotics, those good bacteria on a daily basis. So You may be imbalanced in your gut if you've ever taken antibiotics to fight off an infection. And really, if this is more of a regular thing. If you get an infection and you run to the doctor and they give you an antibiotic to help fight that, you need to be replenishing during that antibiotic use with probiotic use, and then afterwards, especially to help rebuild that. How do you do that? Well, you need to be supplementing with it, but then you also need to be going in and getting fermented foods, things like kimchi, kombucha, kefir. You can get an unsweetened yogurt. These things should all be unsweetened. There's so many foods that have it naturally occurring. Sauerkraut is a good one, so long as it's been built up with those good bacteria in there. You may be imbalanced if you consume too many processed foods and sugars. If you're like the standard American, you're probably killing the bacteria in your gut with those sugars. You're getting the bad bacteria too much of the food that they need, and the bad bacteria not enough of the food that they need. Where bad bacteria eat the sugars, good bacteria eat the fiber that should be protecting us from the sugars. If you drink too many sweetened beverages, if you have digestive issues, that's a sign that your bacteria are off. If you get sick regularly, if you're having those symptoms, if you're having those illnesses, diagnosis regularly, you're probably needing some of those bacteria. Next on the list is the daily defense, an indication that you may need more antioxidant support, because this is what this is for. So we're talking about curcuminoids, we're talking about Indian gooseberry, we're talking about these melon extracts that are available in this. If you've been diagnosed with a cardiovascular issue, you may need to be taking a daily defense on a daily basis. If you've been diagnosed with an inflammatory condition, it may absolutely be a sign that you need to be on the daily defense. If you have joint or bone pain, absolutely, this is actually more potent than aspirin and safer for you, less harmful to the gut, less harmful to your liver and kidneys than some of these anti-inflammatories that are on the market. If you get sick seasonally, that's probably a sign that you need some antioxidant support. And that's coming through that daily defense. And then we have, for those people that don't love to eat garlic or parsley, these are so potent as far as their antioxidant blend. The oils in these plants have so many of these antioxidants in there. So we put together this supplement for that. This helps to support immune function, cardiovascular function, and wound healing. And so if you're struggling in any of those areas, this is one that I absolutely recommend. So this bundle here, it's valued at about $146. But what we're doing today is if you pre-order it, and you can either go to the website, you get a 5% discount by going to the website and doing that. But if you text our office right now at 402-413-8825 or leave a comment below for us to contact you to pre-order that supplement, we're going to give you a 15% discount. We'll have them available for you in the office. It may take us about a week to get them in, but what you'll get out of that is you're going to get the top 9 immune boosting tips. You'll get a personalized immune boost consult at no additional charge, and plus the webinar only discount of 15% off. And so that breaks that down much, much cheaper, because we're trying to keep you healthier today. We want you to be healthy. So getting into this more though, let's move along. Yes, I want you to have what you need on a daily basis, but it goes beyond so much more than supplements. We need oxygen and exercise. Oxygen is one of those main things that you should be doing on a daily basis to keep your immune system healthy. We know that number one, you're going to flush out bad microbes when you're exercising on a daily basis. Just by increasing that blood flow, you're going to flush those out. And by doing so, that's going to make it easier for your immune system to handle some of these things. Number two, it's raising the body temperature. What does that do? Well, it creates a fever-like environment that makes it inhospitable for some of these microbes to grow and flourish. And basically what I'm saying then is, if you're not feeling well, that you should exercise. Absolutely. Maybe not the full-on workout that you might give yourself on a day when you are feeling great, but absolutely you can support your immune system when you're exercising, when you don't feel your best. And number three, it actually reduces stress. It's actually more powerful than the most powerful anti-anxiety or antidepressant on the market. So for exercise, if we could bottle this up, it would already be the most powerful antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication on the market. And we already established that Americans take more of these than the rest of the world. So What's there not to love about exercise? And we do this on a weekly basis in our office, both on Wednesdays and Fridays. You can tune in with us. Workout Wednesdays, both on the YouTube and the Facebook channels. You can work out with us at 10:30 on Wednesdays and Fridays, and I'll show you how to do this. And how do we do this? Well, we do Max T3. T3 stands for the 3 T's. What we're going to be doing is, number one, the type. We want to include all of the essential characteristics of fitness: that power, the strength, the endurance, the balance, the coordination, the flexibility, the speed, the agility, because all of those are necessary for you to be healthy. Number two, we need to get that time in there, because I don't have an hour to exercise. I don't have the half hour before to get ready. I don't have the half hour afterwards to get to decompress from that. I have maybe 12 to 15 minutes. So that's the time we're going to do it in. And we're going to give you a metabolic effect that outlasts that 45-minute to an hour workout that you would get cardiovascularly in the gym or on the treadmill. That's the power of this thing. And then we're going to do that by using a tempo. We're going to be doing quick movements, aiming for a working heart rate of 80% of your maximum or more. And so what does that mean? That means 220 beats per minute minus your age. If we can get to 80% of that or more, we're in our ideal zone to get the most benefit out of this to support our immune system the most. And so what does that mean? That means maybe you should be on your feet doing some jumping jacks right now. Maybe you should be doing some air punches while you're sitting in your chair to get more oxygen into your body to help support your immune system and to increase just the way that you feel about yourself. Get some of that serotonin and dopamine going. Next, we need to minimize toxins. So there's so many of these. I've got a list going right now of 22 most common toxins. And so if you want that list, go ahead and text toxins or leave that text in the comments to 402-413-8825. And we'll send you a free copy of the top 22 toxins so that you can get that. So number one, BPA. BPA is something that's found in plastics. It's a known estrogen mimicker, also known carcinogen. It's known to create or increase your risk of cancer. You find this in plastic containers, canned foods. If it's liquid, do not put it in a plastic container. If it's a canned food, make sure that it's BPA free. But it's not just the BPAs, it's really all the plastics, because they have estrogen mimickers that just we haven't shown to be carcinogenic yet, just because we haven't done the research on it. Number two, lead. Lead is found in older paints and pipes. It's found in polluted soil and water. It's made in some toys that are old, that come from China prior to 2007. And so if you're my age and you're giving your kids some of these toys that you used to play with, make sure that they weren't made in China. Make sure that the kids aren't chewing on them, because that can actually lead to further problems and suppress the immune system. PCBs, these are persistent organic pollutants. They were discontinued in the US after 1977, but it still lasts. It's still in the soil. And so we need to make sure that we're getting, organically farmed food so that it's not showing up in our crops, not showing up in our organic produce. And then number four, that's going to be chlorine. Chlorine is a known neurotoxin. And so all this disinfectant that we're using in our bathrooms and on everything, all our door handles, and actually that smell that you're getting, that's the smell of brain cells dying. It's in our tap water. We use it to disinfect our water. And so it's very imperative that we get a clean cleaning solution. There are EPA approved safe cleaners that still take out viruses that aren't chlorine, that aren't bleach, that aren't going to kill your brain cells. You also should invest in a high quality filter for your water, whether it's reverse osmosis or something like a Berkey that's a charcoal filter that pulls the toxins out of the system. And also, if you can get it to pull out fluoride. Most of you probably assume that fluoride is good for you because it's good for your teeth. That's not the fluoride that we're putting into our water right now. That stuff that's coming in from industrial byproducts. The fluoride that's shown to actually be good for you comes from organic sources, naturally occurring sources. That's already in the water because it was existing underground for years and years and years and just was inherent in that water. But the problem with fluoride is that it competes with iodine in your thyroid. So if you're dealing with a thyroid condition right now, if you're breastfeeding, if you're pregnant right now, you absolutely need to be avoiding fluoride because it can affect yours and your child's thyroid and can lead to thyroid conditions. Number 6 is cyanide. It's actually naturally occurring in apples, nuts, seeds, and lima beans. So is there such a thing as too much of a good thing? Absolutely. An apple a day may keep the doctor away, but 12 apples a day may actually induce a toxicity reaction. So make sure that you're limiting your exposure to some of these things, that you're only getting enough, or that you're sprouting some of these things. Formaldehyde. This is a known carcinogen, and it's present in air fresheners, most air fresheners, furniture, especially new furniture, e-cigarettes, and some clothing. So yeah, take it from somebody who's worked in a cadaver lab. You don't want exposure to this. Number 8 is parabens. These are present in beauty products, deodorant, toothpaste, shampoo, conditioner, lotion, makeup. So ladies especially need to be concerned about this. Make sure there aren't numbers in the ingredients list in your beauty products. Turn it around, look at the ingredients list, make sure there's no number in this, because that's a sign that there's a paraben in there. And then pesticides and herbicides, most of these, we know when you get too much exposure to it is going to create a toxicity reaction that is likely to cause cancer. Glyphosate is classified by the World Health Organization as a probable carcinogen, and Monsanto, Bayer, has actually lost billions of dollars just in the last 2 years in lawsuits because it's creating stomach cancers and intestinal cancers. And yes, we need to be avoiding that Roundup because of this. So yes, the list goes on and on. If you want the full list, text or comment below toxins, 402-413-8825 to get that. But steroids, antibiotics, heavy metals, artificial colors, flavors, high fructose corn syrup, and so many more. These things interfere with the proper function of your immune system. So let's keep moving on. What's one of the best ways to get rid of toxins? Wash your hands. This is a biblical principle. Beyond all the spiritual things of being considered clean or unclean, just look at the biological processes that God told Moses to go cleanse yourself from, to wash your hands after handling dead animals, to wash your meats, to not consume things that have blood in it. Washing makes a difference. It makes a difference from a health perspective, and God knew it from the beginning. He told us about it. He may not have explained about microbes and bacteria and viruses and some of the things that are persistent in these and why they're unhealthy for us. But if God said it, he said it for a reason. And just because Jesus died on the cross, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't wash our hands anymore, because that was in the Old Testament. Absolutely. Washing your hands, absolutely. It can help to decrease respiratory illness by about 20% and diarrheal illness by about 30%. Do it for about 20 seconds. I'm doing it, between every single patient right now, and we're cleaning the tables to make sure that every single patient in our office is safe. So next, what's the next thing here? So next is actually about the nervous system. So really, so many people miss the boat on this. So many people don't understand the power that we have in the chiropractic adjustment. When we maximize the function of our nervous system, when we remove the interference from our nervous system, then we see our immune competence go up to its normal levels. And this is a study that was performed, in Sweden. I believe it was the University of Oslo. I could be getting that wrong. But what they did is they tracked chiropractic care patients for 5 years, compared to two different groups. They compared them to patients that were not getting adjusted at all, and then immune compromised patients. And what they found is that patients that got wellness chiropractic care for 5 years or more, they had a 200% greater immune competence than those that did not receive chiropractic care. And patients that were immune compromised before that got adjusted for 5 years, they had a 400% greater immune competence than those that were immune compromised. And so just looking at this, who should be getting adjusted? Everybody that needs it. And how do you know if you need it? Well, number one, we can go to symptoms. Some of the most common symptoms of subluxation being any misalignment of your spine that interferes with the brain-body connection. Your brain is supposed to be communicating with your body, and if your vertebrae are out of alignment, whether that's because you've lost the curve in your neck, right? You're supposed to have these 345-degree curves from the side. When you're looking at that over there, when you lose those curves, it puts tension on the curves. When we know that when you lose even half of the curve in your neck, it decreases your life expectancy by about 20 years compared to your peers. When you have head forward posture, when your head's gone forward 2 inches or more, it increases your risk of a cardiovascular event by 50% compared to your peer demographic. And so some of the most common warning signs of having subluxation are all listed off to the side over here. And so you think about it, when you have a misalignment in your neck, right at the top, right where the nerves go out to your ears, go out to your eyes, if you were to have a migraine headache, what would be one of the number one symptoms you'd have? Well, you'd have pounding pain in your head, Maybe it's not pounding, maybe it's sharp. I mean, it expresses itself differently per patient, but you're going to have sensitivity in your vision. You want to turn out all the lights. You're going to have sensitive hearing. You want to put a pillow over your head, and you're going to want to cover that up and block all those things out. You have a pinched nerve in your low back, spastic muscles in your low back. It hurts. Maybe it runs down your leg into your foot. Maybe you've got that sciatica. You can have spastic colon just the same way, from the same nerves that exit out of the low back and go out to every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. It's incredible how much the nervous system controls, and yet how little we look at this thing. And so we look at somebody like Jack, 59 years old, comes into my office dealing with low back pain. If I was to show you an x-ray of his low back right now, you'd be like, that actually looks pretty good. Well, why is it malfunctioning? Well, when you look at the curve from the side over here, he's supposed to have a smooth 45-degree curve. He's lost that curve in his neck so badly that if you're looking at the bottom of that curve, it's going the wrong way. The whole curve there should be smooth, facing out towards the front of his skull. And then when we look at him from the front over here, he should be straight up and down. What's he got? He's got a 16-degree scoliosis. And yet his only symptom that he's coming to the chiropractor for is, low back pain with a mild sciatica. And so we sit down with him and we say, look, Jack, we have to fix this. This has been going bad for a long time. How do I know that? Well, because of the arthritis that's forming in the joint. Arthritis doesn't form in normally aligned joints. It forms in abnormally aligned joints. We know this because of Wolff's Law. Wolff's Law states that any joint that's out of alignment, even 2 millimeters or 2 degrees, is going to start to degenerate, and it degenerates at a rate of 7% per year. Okay, well, how long does that mean? That for him to get to phase 3 arthritis over there at the bottom of his neck, how long has that been out? Probably about 50 years. So when did this start? It started when he was a kid. When did the scoliosis probably start? It's probably started when he was a kid. And so it built up and it built up and it built up. And so we started him under care, and he went under care for a number of years. And guess what? Not a number of years, number of months. And as he did, his back started to feel better. And as that happened, we actually saw, guess what? His blood pressure started to get better. His heart disease started to go away. And so we see on that second x-ray there, those are the results. After just 6 months of care, we were actually able to straighten out, and he no longer has scoliosis. And that's what we do. We do structural correction in our office. And then at that point, Jack decided to continue to base his health on his symptoms, or lack thereof, because he was feeling better. His symptoms had gone away, even though that spine is still not normal, right? He's got a 7-degree deviation. When you're looking at it from the front, that's not normal. It's supposed to be perfectly straight. He felt fine, and so he stopped going. Stopped supporting the health of his nervous system. Guess what came back over the next 2 years? The scoliosis. Guess what came back? The low back pain. Sciatica worse than it ever was. We started him under care again. We were able to get it corrected again. That's what we do in our office, is we do advanced structural correction. But it takes time, and it takes consistency. And then how long do you want to have a healthy nervous system for? Hopefully for the rest of your life, because if you don't have a healthy nervous system, what's that going to do? It's going to keep your body from being able to self-regulate, being able to heal and function from a normal perspective. And so, what is the power of an adjustment? Well, what we see after an adjustment is it can lower your blood pressure by the same amount as taking 2 blood pressure medications simultaneously. When you have subluxation in your spine and you're an athlete and you get that corrected by a chiropractor, we see the improvement in your vertical jump improve almost immediately as the same amount as you working out on your vertical jump for 2 months straight. When we look at your white blood cells under a microscope, we see improvements in the production of those white blood cells, regardless of symptoms, when you're getting adjusted for that subluxation in your spine. When you get adjusted, we see improvements of every organ system in the body to return your body to its natural healing state. But when there's interference in that nervous system, it starts to suppress the function in every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. And your health overall, it starts to suffer. And so this is why I get adjusted every single week. This is why my family gets adjusted as often as they want to. I don't tell them to not get adjusted because they've already been adjusted this week, or they've already been adjusted this month. We need to get adjusted when we're subluxated. How often does that happen? Way more often than you realize. Just by sitting down, you lose 10 degrees off of the curve in your low back. 2 degrees, 2 millimeters or more, is enough to restrict the flow through those nerves Dr. Sharpless, University of Colorado, by as much as 60%. That's a big deal because those nerves in the low back, those go out to the digestive organs. What's the number one symptom that we see when you sit at a desk long term for a living? When you work from home and you don't have the proper ergonomic setup, we see digestive issues form. We see issues with the immune system form. And so we need to get up, we need to move, we need to be doing our wobble exercises, we need to be doing our traction, we need to be doing our isometric exercises to support that, but we also need to be getting adjusted. That's why our office is open. That's why we're supporting your health with immune system supporting chiropractic adjustments. So what are your action steps tonight? Number one, if you haven't had your immune system checked, if you haven't had your nervous system checked, we need to schedule an exam. For anybody that wants more information on some of these studies that I've been talking about, just text Chiro to 402-413-8825 and you can receive a free copy of Chiropractic and Immunity. I'll be happy to support that to you. Or I'll be happy to send that to you. And also, if you haven't had an exam before, we're going to give you our discount, our biggest discount tonight for participating in the webinar. If you text us below or text that number and text Chiro to that number, I'll also follow up with you and see if you need a chiropractic exam. And if you need that chiropractic exam, we're going to be giving you a 60% discount off of that exam and any necessary x-ray. So what does that look like? Starts with a posture exam. Structure determines function. If you're out of alignment at all, we're going to see how that impacts your nervous system. We're going to do a digital nerve scan. It's an electrical test that measures the electrical flow through the nerves. We're going to see where that's affecting, how that's showing up symptomatically, how that's showing up asymptomatically. We're going to check your range of motion. Motion is life. When you don't move, you don't produce ATP in your brain. When your brain doesn't produce ATP, it starts to die. It starts to be malused. So we need to schedule that exam to see how that's working. If we see need for it, we'll take those x-rays. X-rays show us where the misalignments are and then how to correct it. So that's the number one place to start. Number two, start with what you can. What you're not doing is the thing that can interfere with the function of your nervous system. And so start with what you're not doing right now. Start with what you can handle. And then number three, stay plugged in. So how do we stay plugged in? Well, we're doing these workshops on an almost bi-weekly basis, and we're doing these classes on an almost daily basis. So we are doing a Nutrition 101 on Monday the 13th. And we are hoping that by that time, some of the restrictions to meeting and gathering in a public place have been lifted, but we are assuming that that's still going to be a recommendation of 10 to 15 or less. And so if you want one of those seats, if you don't typically have access to the internet, or you don't like what's going on, and you want to be out and you want to be around people, then you can text food or comment food below and we will reserve a spot for you so that you can sit through the Nutrition 101 webinar so that you can participate in that in person. But yeah, we're going to be doing that Nutrition 101. That's going to be a deep dive on how you should be eating, even more advanced than what we did today. And then our next workshop is going to be Max Kids, because so many of the issues that we're dealing with now aren't a product of what we did yesterday. They're what we did as children growing up, the mindsets that we had, the behaviors that we formed as children, what our parents taught us. And so knowing how to raise kids and to start them off strong makes such an important impact on how they're going to live out the rest of their lives. And so, text food to 402-413-8825 to register for the Nutrition 101. Text Max Kids to that same number if you want to be here for that. Hopefully by that time we're able to lift all restrictions on the number of people that are meeting in those settings. But absolutely, we want to make sure that you get what you need, but we'll keep you in tune. I know that there's been some freezing issues. Hopefully the recording won't have any of those. So if you missed anything, tune back in later and hopefully that problem will be rectified. If not, I can get you all that information as well. But yeah, thanks for keeping us updated. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We're going to keep you going. Make sure to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram. These YouTube videos are being posted almost daily. We're going to upload this as well, so you have access to that as well. And then just, stay healthy, guys. I'm gonna stick around if you guys have any questions. I know, if anybody here is new, if you've never been to our office before, we're on the south side of Lincoln, located at the corner of 56th and Pine Lake. People always ask us, what's what's the role of insurance in this thing? And honestly, it's changing. That's a day-to-day thing. We've initiated some conversations about what that means, what that involves. Maybe trying to get in network with a few more insurance companies, but we're not going to do anything that actually limits your options financially. We've made the decision to use a lot of out-of-network benefits for so many of our patients in our office, just because the limitations on the in-network coverage are so limited. They sell you one thing and then they limit us to another thing, and it's just not fair to you. And so we're going to be doing our due diligence on this, making decisions. But if you have insurance, bring it with you. We'll run your benefits. We'll see if we're in network, see if we're out of network, see what your best coverage is, and make care affordable for every single person that's coming in. If anybody else has a question, I'd be happy to answer it. I know one of the biggest questions I get is on sweeteners. What are the good sweeteners? My number one sweetener that I like to use is stevia. That's the one that I use to sweeten my coffee with. I like to use Sweet Drops from the Sweet Leaf Company. They have flavored coffee drops that you can use. I'm personally using the heck out of the caramel Sweet Drops right now. I like the chocolate Sweet Drops. I know my sisters like the coconut Sweet Drops. We also have xylitol. A lot of people like. I get some digestive issues with it. I can't do too much of it. Other people respond to it a little bit better. I prefer, among the sugar alcohols, something like erythritol. Doesn't have as strong of a reaction. Isomalt actually has a slightly higher glycemic index, but is lower than regular table sugar. And then there's things like maple syrup or coconut palm sugar that are lower than table sugar, but it's still fairly high. We don't want to add in too much of a fructose load. Healthy fats are another one. My favorite one right now is avocado oil. I buy it in bulk at Costco. I try to get extra virgin if I can. And just so you guys know, we will be doing shopping tours coming up. I'm planning on doing a follow-up one to the Nutrition 101. Well, once we're actually able to get into a Costco or some of these grocery stores around here, we'll do a live stream with some of these, and I'll show you how I shop, how I put things in the cart. But thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to sign off now. More questions, leave them in the comments. I'll go back later. I'll be monitoring these. You guys have a great night. Stay healthy, and God bless.